What's up, guys? This is Jay from COI. I apologize about the audio. Not great. I had a pipe burst in my house, and so I have been at different places for the last 3 days, and I'm yet to be in my studio or anywhere near one. So I'm in an open room. As you can imagine, there is nothing stopping background noise from coming through. So I apologize for that. But I did want to talk about a few things. First thing I want to talk about is um, Donald Trump threatening to target 52 cultural sites in Iran. Now, not only is that a war crime, and I do think that that's important that we note that, it also shows that he's not on the same level and the same communication line as his own generals, who also have said, we're not doing that. It's completely inappropriate. Um, and it's not how you strategically fight a war. Now, I do find it interesting that no one has said, we're not doing that because we're not going to war with Iran. It's just, no, we're not targeting those sites. We're targeting other sites. Mind you, a war hasn't really been declared yet. Um, thank God. So it does seem interesting that they didn't correct him and say, well, we're just not doing that. But that that is what he is saying. That he said that basically kind of all out war or all out emotional attacks is his plan, which it's why you don't have somebody who has no experience and doesn't listen to his generals. It's why you don't have him come up with plans behind his phone. And of course, they're not going to go with what Trump says. The military is far too big to let one man control it. But again, it doesn't really boot well for our military or the support behind it because most Americans are even saying that's completely stupid. Why would you do that? It shows nothing but an emotional response. Strategically, you would want to, if you were going to look at sites to target, you would be looking at oil fields, um, airplane hangars, airports of any form. Obviously, places where there's military um, sites and things like that. Going after their cultural, that's that that that's on the lines of like ethnic cleansing. So yeah, um, completely emotional. That's how Trump is. I do want to say on that note is we found out about the attack on Soleimani. Mike Pompeo made a comment about it being an action they had to take to thwart a future attack on America, and that it was going to happen very soon. And one thing I will say, I'm pretty proud of the Democrats, the House Democrats, because they are going to propos- uh, put in a proposition saying that Trump and his intelligence officers need to supply the information about this apparent attack that Soleimani was going to commit. And I find that interesting because so many Democrat or Republican, they love war. And yeah, maybe they don't like how Trump is going to do it, but they have been very, very resistant to it. So hopefully, um, they actually go through with that and hold him to it. And granted, I know there's so many people who are saying, yeah, but they wanted to see his taxes too, right? Yeah, and true. Yeah, I don't. For me, it's more of a moral victory than it is anything else. I don't think we'll ever see that. And I am kind of surprised, and it goes further to explain how Trump and his team are not on the same wavelength here, because most administrations would just stage something. I mean, you remember Colin Powell and the WMDs? Colin Powell knew there was no WMDs there, but he went out. He did a little dance for W and Cheney, and boom, we're going into war. I'm surprised they didn't just falsify a document and say, "Oh, see, here it is. This is from Soleimani." I'm highly surprised they don't do that, and they still might. So the other issue with the document and letter is our troops were given a letter to withdraw from Iraq. I talked about it the last show that Iraq was going to be kicking us out basically, and it hadn't happened. I had just, put two and two together, and so 2 nights ago they did just that. They voted their parliament, all pretty much majority voted to ask us to withdraw from Iraq. So I was surprised today to see that there's a letter that says we are planning to remove our troops. Namely, because it doesn't make sense. Uh, Number one, the 3,500 troops who were being deployed to Iraq had just got there. Not to mention, we at the moment have B-52 bombers on their way to Iraq. So there's a whole push in this general direction, and you see this letter. It says we're pulling out, and honestly, I thought, okay, this is when we're gonna maybe this is anti-interventionist Trump. The Trump who said I don't want ongoing wars, and maybe he's gonna come out with a tweet and say all we wanted was to get Soleimani. We're done. We're out of the region. Peace. Um, Again, I know that's not going to happen, but it really is the only way he can win this war. But obviously, that's not what it was. It was a mistake. It was another miscommunication, I guess. I don't even understand why this letter got out there. When asked about it, uh, we're told that it was a draft, it wasn't even signed. Why was it even drafted? Is my question. I'm completely fine with it. I don't mind the idea of our troops leaving Iraq, but um, why were they working on it? And that leads to so many questions. Number one, and I think the most important is where are they going? I know that there's been a few people commenting that, well, that's because they're heading to Iran. No, you want to set up a base of operations, um, and that's where you can feed your troops with supplies, rations, and a place to dock and a place to fuel up your equipment. So no, just because we're heading into Iran doesn't mean that we would leave Iraq. The other interesting theory I've heard, and one I might actually kind of believe, is that maybe we're going to head north to Turkey. We're buddies with Turkey. We helped them uh, destroy our allies, the Kurds. So maybe we can attack from Turkey. It kind of puts us honestly at a disadvantage because we're going from being able to attack along an entire border to just the very edge of Iran. And with Iraq probably more siding on the lines of an Iran ally than a U.S. ally right now, we might have to deal with Iraq as well. So I would think we would just leave our troops there. You occupy it, quote unquote, and go fight Iran. If you're gonna fight the war, again, I'm anti-war, so doesn't seem like a smart move. So that letter, I would definitely pay attention to it. I would see what's going on. That doesn't make sense at all. I think we gotta watch Turkey, see what they're saying, uh, see if there's any communication between Trump and Erdogan. The cultural sites, it just shows how immature and really repugnant Trump is. And the most discerning thing about the entire day's events today was learning that B-52 bombers are heading to Iraq, um, to be stationed, to be waiting. And the fact that nobody is scaling down. The only one who has said anything about peace or um, scaling back a little bit has actually been a member of the Lebanese military, the attorney or the Secretary of State, uh, Hassan Nasrallah, um, who the reason why it's important is because um, he does belong to Hezbollah, which we hear how violent they are and they're terrorists. And it was really interesting. I thought that he had a statement where basically he was saying when we say you know death to USA, we mean Trump, and we're talking about the government. And then going on to say that if there is attack on America, they need to make sure that they're attacking our troops or our some our government, so to speak, and not to injure civilians or hurt anybody who is not associated with the military in any shape or form. I found that interesting only because it seems like they're putting more rules in this engagement on themselves than what we are. Our media, on the other hand, is saying that they're all evildoers and bad people, essentially. We haven't heard anyone say, hey, we just need to discuss with these people. They're rational people. No, not really. And it's a lot of what Hassan Nasrallah said is that the average American is a good person. I found that really, really interesting. There's an entire clip of it. It was about 50 minutes long. I heard most of it. So that's where we're at. Where we're going to be tonight, who knows? But the other thing that I wanted to talk about real quick is the draft. Because there's a lot of people worrying about being drafted. I've seen the whole meme, don't draft me, bro, and all that. And just to ease anyone's mind on this, the the DoD, the military, they don't want you. If you don't want to be there, they don't want you. And namely because it's like allowing a an illness into a healthy body. If they pull you in, your morale is going to be low. You're not going to want to be there. You're not going to want to do anything. And instead of them changing you, you're going to change the soldiers that you're working with. And especially if you got an entire, you know, if you got half of your troops were drafted, yeah, it doesn't really work that well. So I do believe there's a few things that we'll see, and there's about 8 steps that the military will take before they'll implement a draft, and there's a lot of them, by the way. As far as raising your incentives, they'll draft within. They'll do something called like a backdoor draft, um, which is kind of messed up. It's basically when somebody's done their 4 years and they're about to get out, and in comes, staff sergeant. Nope, no, you're not, buddy. You're back in. Um, there's a whole lot of steps it'll take. For anybody who's really concerned about the whole draft thing, just number one, we're not even at war yet, so chill out. But number two, the big sign to look forward is when they start openly saying, "Hey, we're gonna extend the age um, to be eligible to serve. I think it's 35 now. It might be older. I'm not exactly sure. But when they extend the age, when they start saying openly, oh, hey, you just need to have a GED, or, they just drop the standards down really low. And you will see, enlistment bonuses rise. You'll see some of that stuff. That one I wouldn't freak out about too much if you see that, but the other ones that's when you should start thinking about a possible draft. Anyway, I really appreciate you guys. Please like, subscribe, do all that stupid stuff. Um, if you have any questions or comments, just put it in the section below and I will get back with you. Anyway, thanks a lot, guys. Take care.